So many of you probably know by now, we just got confirmation there will be count them, 4 big DC Comics events in the first quarter of 2022. And it's time to have a conversation. When is enough enough? We've already seen DC Comics kind of following down Marvel's path as far as the all new, all different era, kind of doing a lot of race, gender, sexuality swaps of their characters. And it feels like they've definitely fallen in line with the variant covers, and now they're following in line with the beefed up event schedule. And here to talk with me about that is a man who knows a thing or two about DC Comics, contributor to BatmanNews.com, as well as the man behind PopByCulture.com. Josh McDonald, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Wes. I'm excited to talk about how we have too many events, way too many events, perhaps 4 too many events.
There are a lot of events out there, and I want to say, if you like to hear about comic book events, Thinking Critical YouTube is probably a place for you. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and definitely hit the bell for notifications. So we knew we were going to have this Shadows of the Bat event, which already seemed a little bit odd because it was coming right on the heels of Fear State, which was over in Batman. This was going to be in Detective Comics, a weekly event essentially for 3 months. And then we got word that we were going to have the Trial of the Amazons, and that is a big, big crossover between Wonder Woman, or Nubia and the Amazons. My goodness, Wonder Girl, Wonder Woman, Princess Diana. There's like 5 books that are involved with this, and it's standalone series. And then we got word that Joshua Williamson is doing his own crossover event, a little bit more contained to Batman. You're going to hear that name again. Robin, as well as we've got Deathstroke Inc. in there, and then just within the last 48 hours, we've gotten word that we're going to get this War for Earth 3, which is basically the crime syndicate coming into our universe, hunting down the Suicide Squad, who have been going through multiverses ever since Future State ended. And it's going to involve Flash and Teen Titans Academy. That's a lot of events. You don't normally see this out of DC Comics. Within 3 months, we're going to have 4 events going on.
You typically don't see this. I mean, DC's gotten event heavy, but it's almost more like, annually repeating, doing events to repeat themselves from the previous year. But now they're just going that full Marvel path and like event. Before we dive into this, I think it's worth discussing about how we talk about events now, because if you look at crossover stories, we've had crossover stories for forever. And it was just billed as that. We have a crossover story where the narratives in these books are going to cross paths. You'll get your story, but we didn't necessarily consider it an event. So the main difference we're getting here is we're hyping it up as an event. We're pushing it as a major event. We're saying there's going to be these huge critical outcomes, and there almost never is. Like, it's just a smaller story that has some, if any, ramifications, and then your books move on. But DC's trying to set it up as something that it's not. And Marvel's done the same thing. And that's kind of what hurts these books to a degree, is you overpromise and underdeliver. And I'm afraid that's what we're going to get here.
Yeah, because if you have 4 events going on, a Batman event, a Wonder Woman event, another Batman inclusive event, and then one going on with the Suicide Squad, and they're all going to be status quo changing. Like, how long are you going to change the status quo for? 2 weeks before the next event hits and changes the status quo again? So who cares if the status quo changes? You're just changing it again. You don't even get a time to experience the ramifications and the outcome of the big thing that you just invested. In the case of Wonder Woman and in the Trial of the Amazons, that's probably going to be like $100, but like at least a $50 event. That's going to be a lot of books.
It is a cash grab.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned the crossover stories. I love crossover stories. Mm-hmm. You've always gotten them, within, Deathstroke. We just had one with Teen Titans not too long ago. We had one with Batman. We had one with Deathstroke. We had one with Batman and Flash. I like those. And the button felt really important. But we didn't get a button alpha for $7. And we didn't get a button omega because they're doing these cash grabs, because you have to have these extra #1 issues. I think on its own, just a little crossover between Batman, Robin, and then Deathstroke Inc. sounds cool. It makes sense for the characters.
Yep.
Get maybe some people to pop over on some titles that they normally wouldn't read, just so they can fully read the entire story. That works for me. But once you start throwing this alpha and omega issues, and we saw that the first one is $7, and we just DC is not delivering on those at all. They, when we go to Fear State, the Alpha and Omega both sucked ass.
They really did. They didn't do anything. And I've said this before. I understand the Alpha from the context of setting up readers who haven't been reading everything, but at $7, like it really is too much. And then they're trying
That's
so hard.
That's a barrier to entry to the story for readers that were like, you know what, I'm not reading those titles, but maybe I need to catch up on this and see what's happening. $7, never mind.
Oh yeah. I know many people, even people that go to my LCS, that their budget is $10 to $15 per week for the books they get. So $7.99, that's half, if not more than half of their weekly budget that they're planning on spending. They're out. They don't need it. They're good. It just turns people off as I stutter because it bothers me so much. DC, Marvel, they really need to figure out how they want to approach stories. And I get that they think they see financial gains from this because you do see bumps in readership. But I think when you look at these things holistically and long-term, you see that you don't get that long-term benefit. It's just a quick little bump. It's a cash grab. It's a whim that, there's a rush of excitement. People check it out, but it doesn't actually, deliver for them long-term. And they have to figure out how to navigate this a little bit better. And then two, when you start breaking down these individual things, like we'll look at Shadows of the Bat. It was one of the things that I was actually somewhat interested in reading. I love the supporting characters. I had enjoyed what Mariko Tamaki was doing on Detective Comics, and then we get the setup for it, and it was god awful. And then not only that, we're looking at it, and it's like, okay, well, why is Batman out of Gotham? Like, what we know why he's out of Gotham, but it doesn't seem like it's enough to warrant an event.
Well, yeah, he's out of Gotham, doing this Batman Inc. stuff, but he's in Gotham for Shadows of the Bat, right?
I mean, he's on
covers.
He's on covers, but the point of the story is supposed to be that he's not there and his sidekicks have to run the city. And,
I thought the point was that they're erecting Arkham Tower.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of points. So
what is it erecting? I don't even know.
They're erecting Arkham Tower, but it's supposed to be the sidekick stepping in to run the city while Bruce is gone. But then Bruce is showing up on cover. So is he actually there or not? I don't know if they're either the writers still don't know what they're doing, which we saw in Fear State, or the marketing team is just like trash.
Yeah, it's I don't think they're getting their message out there. I find it all to be quite confusing. And I don't have a lot of faith in DC Comics' ability with their trimmed down, bare bones editorial staff to really execute anything at this large scale that we're talking about, the trial of the Amazons. I was reading the interviews about it. Michael Conrad said they started planning this in the spring of this year.
Oh, yeah.
You need at least a year to map the whole thing out, get everybody on the same page, end up at the starting point. They got months to do this. There's no way that this is going to come out cohesive.
Oh, no, at all. And then plus, when you have a weekly release like this, you tend to see a deterioration in quality in general, just because of how fast they're having to put things out. It does not bode well. And I think when you look at things holistically too, like it seems like this was intended to be a continuation of what James Tynion had planned, but now we know James Tynion's out. We also know that the direction is shifting a little bit. It almost makes you wonder, okay, are we just doing this because it was done, which was pretty much the reason we got Future State, and that wasn't great. But then it makes you bring into question the Shadow War. Like, okay, so is Shadows of the Bat, are we just doing it to do it, and then we're really going to focus on Shadow War?
I think Shadow War came about. It was supposed to be a crossover, I think, between Robin and Deathstroke. Yeah. And Williamson ended up being, by happenstance, right on Batman. I don't think that was planned. They're like, what are you going to do with Batman? He's like, well, I'm going to put him in this event that I was already writing.
Yeah.
Might as well.
Might as well. One, I do not blame him. Like, if you've got the keys to Batman, like, use Batman. It's going to help you sell copies. But yeah, it seemed like this was strictly supposed to be a event between Robin and Deathstroke. We've gotten seeds for a Deathstroke narrative in Robin since the very beginning. You've got the new Deathstroke Inc. book. Those play well into each other. How Batman's going to fit we'll see. It might just be like a blip, like here's 2 issues to fit into this and then move on. But my point of this is though, is like they're setting Shadows of the Bat up as to be this event that's supposed to mean something, but we already know there's an event after it that looks like it's going to mean more.
Shadows. The names
Shadows.
are similar. Shadows of the Bat and Shadow War afterwards.
Yeah, but it looks like Shadow War is what's going to really matter. So it kind of, takes the momentum out of Shadows of the Bat for me. It's just,
and
again,
also like the Shadow War weekly release, for 3 months, very reminiscent of what Jonathan Hickman did with House of X Powers of 10 over at Marvel. Once again, kind of copying their what they're doing. But it seemed like Jonathan Hickman might have been working on that story for 2 years before it finally published.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot of time. Obviously he'd been planning out, and that was a very intricate, detailed story. Marvel has attempted to recreate that multiple times with weekly release schedules, even at smaller capacity at like 6 issues or 8 issues. And they've sucked because I think, it takes a lot of time to build out a story like that and really pump it out in a week. When people are getting a comic book a week, their expectations and the way they're going to read the book and receive it are different than if you're spaced out by 2 weeks or even 4, like you normally would be.
Yep.
Does the editorial staff at DC know this? I don't think so.
I don't either. I do want to pinpoint, like you talked about Hickman, and yes, we know that he had a really strong lead time to develop his House of X Powers of 10, because we pretty much had an entire like mini run of X-Men and X books to allow for him to do that. Yes. And taking that time he got to craft his story well, he really got to work his story and give us something that I think we can all agree was really strong. Not strong now, and then those issues, that story was really good. And we're not getting that here. And if you rush, you're going to get a product that feels rushed. It's not going to be well thought. It's not going to be cohesive. And I feel like we're going to find ourselves with the same complaints, at least with Shadows of the Bat, that we had with Fear State. It just crap's happening and we don't really know why, because it doesn't add up.
Another issue that I would definitely have to bring up are the talent involved. We know that DC Comics lost a lot of their premier, A-tier talent that sell comic books, and they're trying to have them to pick up the pieces. They just signed up Tom Taylor to a DC exclusive. Williamson seems to have moved up a tier or two as far as importance with DC Comics. But when you look at Shadows of the Bat, Mariko Tamaki, seems like a lot for Mariko Tamaki. I don't know that writer has ever actually sold anything on their own or ever really executed an event and done it well. Is it gonna go well? I don't know, but that's an unproven talent, at least what they're trying to do. You look at Shadows of Shadow War, Joshua Williamson. He's absolutely done that. He did the Flash War. He did the Button. He's a proven commodity. Absolutely. So I think that's a good fit for him. But then when we go over and we talk about this this War for Earth 3, Robbie Thompson, who's working on Suicide Squad, I don't know that he's ever done an event. And then they're bringing in Hopeless Hallam as his co-writer. Hopeless Hallam is one of the worst writers in all the industry. I've never read a good comic by him. I liked one of them and recommended it, but I know it was a bad comic. It was just really funny in spite of it.
Yeah. When we look at the War of Earth 3, I'm kind of 2 mindsets. I'm looking at it and I'm catching up on Flash currently because all I've heard is how good it is. And so far, I'm really enjoying it. And I can't wait to get to these next few issues. Also, Suicide Squad has been pretty damn good. It's just consistently kind of like hitting its mark, and consistency in comics these days is a hot, well, it's not common. But then you throw in the Teen Titans Academy and I'm like, I'm out.
Unreadable. Yes.
I'm done. And then you said Hope Hallam.
Hopeless Hallam. He's not associated with any of the books. They're bringing him in to be the co-writer. He's a terrible writer. He's destroyed Exo Man of War over at Valiant. Everything he's done at Marvel has been terrible. He did a bad job on Darth Vader. He ruined the X-Men. I think he had some time with the Avengers and ruined them too. Yeah.
To me, those 2 elements just kind of kill whatever momentum this book had. Because when I first heard about it, first started reading it, I was like, all right. And they've kind of been building to this Earth 3, climax and issue since Future State. Like it's consistently been, just going through the motions of setting this up. So I was there. I felt like they set up the story. I thought it was being built up, which is nice because you don't get that anymore. And then you add these other two elements that are just like a dead ringer of like, oh man, I don't know.
Why isn't Jeremy Adams involved? His Flash kicks ass.
Why? It's a fair question. It's honestly a fair question. Hopefully this isn't a sign that Hopeless Hallam is taking Flash in the near future, or Suicide Squad.
And then we talk about the trial of the Amazons. It's Becky Cloonan, Michael Conrad, Vita Ayala, Stephanie Williams, and Joelle Jones. Joelle Jones is a fabulous artist. She's not illustrating any of this. She's not all that great of a writer. And then there isn't a good writer here.
No.
Like,
yeah, the writers that are here, they're fine. They're not great. Sometimes they have bad work. Sometimes they have mediocre work. Sometimes they get lucky and fall into good. If I were going to say anyone seemed like they were going to be a talented writer, I would have said Becky Cloonan because of Gotham Academy. But for me, reading that and then reading her stuff since then, it just tells me how much heavy lifting Brendan Stewart did on that title. But yeah, the creative team and the books that are already existing here, not interested. Not interested at all.
You need to have somebody that puts some butts in seats and has the confidence.
Yeah.
And has a connection with the readers that they know that they can trust them. I don't have this on most of these titles.
No, at all. And you want to have, if you're going to do an event, the point is that you're going to have some type of wow factor, and there is no wow factor here. This, to me, feels like the equivalent of these anthology books where they're just like, let's just get whoever we have to write this. And that's what this feels like.
Yeah, it's like they're doing events to have events. And I don't think that's ever a good policy.
No,
I think Wonder Woman needs more shine. They need to make Wonder Woman more important, but they need to do it by putting a Scott Snyder on the book or something like that. Or maybe a Jeff Johns, bring him back in, or bringing over Chip Zdarsky, put him on Wonder Woman, put somebody that's a high quality writer, but that's not happening here. I think a Flash, Suicide Squad, Teen Titans crossover is a cool idea. I like that it's more contained. I don't like the Alpha and the Omega issues, but then you start throwing in Hopeless. I was like, what is this doing here?
What is it doing?
I'm with you there.
No, yeah. I mean, this event, the Trial of the Amazons in particular, feels like it is nothing more than a media stunt. Like, they want to push Wonder Woman, so they said, what can we do to push Wonder Woman? And this is the result. It doesn't feel story driven. At least the other three events feel like there's a purpose to the story. Like we've got some type of setup leading up to this, and I don't really feel like we've had a setup. We've just gotten all these different Wonder Woman characters. And then they said, hey, we have these characters. We should just do something with them together.
Well, in the interviews, they said Nubia and the Amazons is essentially the prelude to the event. That's one of the worst illustrated comic books I've ever seen in my life, and nobody's reading it.
No, and it's not, I mean, at least so far, nothing really is happening of importance. It doesn't feel like you need to read it, and it's not great.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I like the scale down idea. I like the crossover stories, knock off the Alpha and the Omega stuff and we're in business. But this enormous, huge crossover for Wonder Woman, like it's destined to fail. This Shadows of the Bat, it'll be successful because it's Batman and they have some really badass covers by Lee Bermejo, which are going to be very in demand.
Oh yeah, the covers. I mean, for Shadows of the Bat, the covers are selling this more than anything else for me. And they just released this week the teasers at the back of the comics. They've got that wonderful painted cover, and I can't remember the artist's name, so I feel bad.
Lee Bermejo.
No. There's
another one.
Yeah, there's a separate one, and this artist uses like actual models to paint his covers, but he did the Huntress one shot where she was hand painted. So he did that, but you've got Dick, Babs, Huntress, Cassandra, Steph, and Kate all on this cover, and it looks freaking fantastic. And it's like I saw it and I was like, I want to read that. Other elements of the book don't make me want to read it. If I were to say two things, because I don't want to sound super negative here, Shadow War I think will actually be solid. I think it'll be a good book worth your time. And I think
one creator.
And I think War for Earth 3 could also potentially be good. There's two elements that could completely like knock the knees out of it, but it has potential. The other two, I don't see them going well.
Yeah, they're just going too hard in the pain on the events. I understand it. You're going to have a crisis soon. You're going to get to reboot all your titles and get new #1 titles and get a spike in sales there. You're going to get it. You don't have to do all of Marvel's bag of tricks that kind of turn the readership off. We are going to have a crisis in 2022. So that's at least 5 events. How many more are we going to have?
Oh, and even that I think is supposed to hit by like summer to fall. So then you're going to have winter. You're going to get more. There's going to be more.
Yeah, so I wish they wouldn't go down this path, but they are. If you're from DC Comics, if you want to just listen to this, crossover stories.
Yeah,
just cross them over between 2 or 3 titles. That is a cool concept. It's a proven winner. But throwing these $7 alpha and omega things on the beginning and the end, it's a huge turnoff, and it is an enormous barrier for people to invest in these little shorter burst stories that I think are really smart.
Absolutely. And the only thing I would add to that is just to say the moment you start calling it an event, you put this pressure to deliver an event level story when it's not needed. So, yeah.